Hi everyone. So I've been meaning to do this video for quite a while now. I hope it will be of use to you. So just to give you a sense of what I'll talk about today, the intended audience are those seeking faculty positions, particularly the research tenure track. But this is also, I think, of value to those doing lab interviews, like for research staff, postdocs, even students. And I think there will be valuable insights even for teaching tenure track faculty positions. I'm going to start by talking about why you should be doing job interviews. It might be obvious to some of you, but there's actually hopefully some insights there. Give you an insight or even an insider speaking to the process involved when somebody's being interviewed and evaluated. And then going through some of those criteria and give you insights about how to prepare for them. So I've been to countless number of interviews myself. I've suffered. I have memories of it that have stayed with me. So I hope some of these will be of value to you, and I'll be sharing my understanding of this through my own experiences and people who have shared their experiences with me. And I'll conclude with some more thoughts at the end. So why? I think obviously if you don't have a faculty position or research position and you've just graduated from somewhere, well, you're interviewing. But even if you are at a place, let's say you're a faculty member at a particular institution, even a prestigious institution, I think you really may not know that you're in the best position unless if you look around. And so I think it makes a lot of sense for someone, unless you're absolutely 100% sure that this is the place for you to be, for you every 3 to 5 years even to look into doing job interviews. And of course you have to be genuine about it. Don't do it just for the sake of doing it and just bringing an offer against your existing institution. Go there genuinely trying to see if this position is for you, and this can open up doors for you. So I'll share with you my own sort of a funny experience. So how this can actually help. I remember in my early career years, when I was at Johns Hopkins University, I started interviewing for another position. And I got word that they're interested in me, but I only got word. I never got an offer. But I was very naive, and I just basically went and I told my superior that, you know what, I think I'm leaving. And maybe I wasn't so naive. It is what it is. And so what happened was that in a funny way, they were kind of taken aback and they wanted me to stay, it turns out. And what was funny is that in a week or two, I found out from the other side that they actually don't want me to go there. And I'll talk about this later. Sometimes you really think you have a position, but there's some elements in there that have ultimately decided against you. I'll talk about it later. But there was this period of 1 or 2 weeks where I had no job offer to go there, but then here they thought I'm leaving. And so they started engaging with me. And they said, look, what can we do to make you happier? And so, for example, they gave me a new appointment in a different department, allowing me to get graduate students. There was a bit of a salary increase. We started talking about bridge funding because I was having challenges securing funding at the time. And so I think soon after that, or maybe a while after that, I got some bridge funding, allowed me to recruit, and the rest is history. So this can open up new opportunities for you. So don't hesitate to look into job interviews. I'm going to give you an inside peek about what happens. For example, there could be like 4 steps that might happen in a committee. So there's always a selection committee that's put together to pick, for example, a faculty member. All right. If you're joining a lab, the decisions by the PI. The PI may, of course, consult with other members of the lab. But these steps are specifically for faculty positions. So, 3 or 4 layers or levels will happen. One is that first of all, when a position opens up, tens and tens and tens, even hundreds of applicants may apply to it. So a smaller part of the committee will go through some of all of the applications and just exclude those which are really unrelated. And then there might be, again, a few, there's going to be like, then you're going to be left with a certain number of applications, 10, 15, 20, whatever it is. And so the group then goes through those and narrows those down to maybe 4 or 5 top applicants that they would like to bring in for Zoom interviews, right? And these are not written in stone. These numbers can vary. Then of those who come in for Zoom interviews, the committee may pick around 2 to 3 of them to come in for in-person interviews. And of course, once they come in, finally a decision is made to converge to the top candidate to give an offer to. So this is an example of one of the committees that I was a part of, and how internally, this is just an example, how internally they decided this is how we're going to score and evaluate our candidates. This was a research tenure track position. And so the group decided that we're going to put the highest weight on scientific excellence, which involves some of these aspects. So research is always one of the most important ones: research skills and excellence, track record of publications, communication skills, awards and scholarships, and innovations, patents. So we decided we're going to look at a combination of things, of course. And that is followed in that particular position with 20% weight being given to teaching. Again, these percentages could vary depending on the position. So this includes teaching and mentoring. So this could be track record of mentoring. Again, I'll talk about this later in more detail. Experience in supervising other trainees and formal teaching experience. 10% is about inclusion skills. So this awareness of this term EDI, equity, diversity, inclusion, and having some thoughts about it, and diverse life experiences, we'll talk about that later too, and service to the community, to the university, to meetings, to events, activities, etc. So these are things that you'll be evaluated on. So one of the key things is that as you're being interviewed, don't be shy asking questions. But as you're being invited, if you're not being invited, if you're not even being responded to, likely they will not. I mean, because there's like, again, tens and tens and tens and hundreds of applicants sometimes. But if you're being asked to come in for a Zoom interview or for an in-person interview, don't be shy. Ask questions about what exactly you're being asked to do. How long is my talk? Just don't be shy. At that point, there's going to be an administrative person assigned to you, or even a head of the committee that's going to answer your questions. So you could be asked to talk about your prior research, a chalk talk about your future research or ideas, or an actual demo or demonstration of your teaching. So don't be shy about asking questions. A very important point is that you need to think of your CV and have a really great CV. Now, today we're not talking about that because this is really more related to about what to do before you apply. But the point is that, and a key point is that during your interview process, the interviewers are going to be looking at your profile, looking at your CV a lot. So even though you're being evaluated on what you do when you're there, but ultimately when they do their scoring, when they do their discussions, they will be looking at your CV. So your CV has to be almost flawless. And the people around me know this really well, that I always tell them, you got to think of your CV as a work of art. It's a work that you constantly refine. And again, how to do that is not a topic of today's discussion, but this is going to be an important factor during your interview as well. A key point that I want to emphasize is that you really need to prepare for the people who are going to be interviewing you. And you could actually have fun doing it. When you do your Zoom interview, you may or may not know exactly who's going to interview you. You should be asking for that. You should be asking how many, who's going to be interviewing me. Try to get their names and then look them up. But when you're coming for an in-person interview, you're definitely going to know their names because you're going to be given a list of people you're going to be talking with. And so go through their profiles, give yourself time to prepare, and have fun preparing, actually. It's like put your investigative hat on, your detective hat on, and don't lose sight of anyone. So the example I gave you earlier about this position that I thought I had it, but I ended up not having it, turns out there was this person in the interview panel who worked on a different modality that was my key, that was not my key area of emphasis, but it was something that I had done before and I could have totally projected my future to be along with, in addition to my existing expertise. But he even asked me a question, hey, what are your thoughts about this? And I was a bit dismissive, or at least I totally lost sight of that. And so it turns out he ended up convincing people that this is not the right person. So I lost sight of that individual, and I could have prepared better for that person. And that might have made a difference. Of course, you can't just make stuff up. You have to obviously see if you really can address the needs of the different people who might be interested in you joining that institution. And typically there are things that you could do with people that are within your reach. And so that's good to know. Don't make your presentations too specific. You're not being hired to do exactly what you did before. And I think that's a good, important point. This is an interesting book. Some people call it the Bible of onboarding. And so what happens is that it talks about when you get a position in the first 90 days, what should you be doing? And one of the key points that it emphasizes is that what made you successful before may not be the thing that will make you successful now. Same for interviews. What you did specifically, if, in your previous position does not mean that's exactly what people want you to do in the future. And so this was a mistake that I made in another job interview that I did. And I went there, and what I ended up presenting was very, very meticulous details of my PhD dissertation. And it ended up being a disaster because it was so specific that people were like, so what? And I didn't give them deeper thoughts around deeper thoughts, or about what was the future and what was the bigger picture about what I was doing. So don't lose sight of that. And I think I'll come back to this point more later. When you're doing your PowerPoint presentation, how you do it, of course, matters. And the title of that PowerPoint I recommend should be your comprehensive research title, something that encapsulates what you've done in the past in a broad way, but is also appealing to the people who are interviewing you. In the next slide, which would be your second slide after the title slide, I suggest having a research theme slide that gives a quick overview of the sort of 1, 2, 3. These are the main things that I've been doing. So it gives people a bit of an idea about what your research themes and programs have been in the past. So the bigger picture sort of things before you go into more details. Then in subsequent slides, you really can try to motivate why it is that what you did and why you think it's important, meaningful, motivating, the field that you are working on. And that allows people to recognize that you understand what's going on around your research. You're not just doing your research because your previous advisor told you to do it. You actually understand what's around it. And so in this previous example, the second interview example that I wanted to give you was that in another job interview, when I went there, I had recognized that I shouldn't be talking so specifically. So what I did was I actually sat down with my previous supervisor, and I started reading some papers, and I started gaining even a deeper insight, which I should have done earlier, but I hadn't. I had a little bit, but not deep enough. And so I started to actually understand my own field better, or the biological and the physiological aspects surrounding my field of physics. And so when I went there, I had an extra slide that sort of captured some of these bigger picture things better. And so that worked out quite nicely. So again, even stepping it slightly outside of your comfort zone and talking about the bigger picture and things that were not exactly what you were doing, but motivate what you were doing and shows that you're aware and you have knowledge of related fields, it can be very valuable. Show nice images, don't use too much text. I don't like people to get lost in slides, so I think moving a mouse is important, or hand gestures and pointing and walking around, or if you're not walking, moving around, just not being a totally static person, I think can be very valuable. This comes with practice. So don't be shy about mentioning other relevant experiences, awards, funds, recognitions that you think are going to be interesting. And I suggest you finish with 2 slides. One would be a slide on your sort of thoughts, where you see the future, even a quotation. I once recall I did a few talks in jobs, and I put a quotation, and then after that I said, oh, this quotation, by the way, is by myself, and people sort of smile around it. And but the point is, you sort of bring it all together, bring it home, and you sort of that shows your skill in terms of, again, putting a sense around the specifics of the work that you did. And finally, having an acknowledgement slide can be very good. And I would list there everyone that you've worked with that have been valuable to you. And that in itself shows that you have a wide network of people that you've worked with. You should anticipate questions that people ask you, and so you could have backup slides. So when they ask you more questions, you could sort of go to them. and that could be very valuable. Practice, practice, practice. Doing job interviews can become a part of you, like, and by practicing a lot and even memorizing certain steps of what you're saying in your talk or how you're saying it, that allows you to focus then more on your interactions with the people, because those parts you cannot fully anticipate. But you could master the part that you're focusing on. And so talking in front of mirrors and practicing, or with your friends, I think these are all good ideas. Remember that though you might be scored by people on specific things that you did, and ultimately the impression you make on people and how you interact with them, and these subtle techniques, and I shouldn't even call it techniques, the ease by which you interact with the people, and the fact that you're able to listen to them, because if you're so stressed and you're so focused on like just doing what you're doing, you cannot hear people too well. So ultimately they want to see how confident you are and how receptive you are to questions. And so those unexpected things you could sort of be prepared for if you've mastered the part that you're already assigned to deal with, and that's preparing your presentation and knowing how to deliver it. Don't sell yourself short. I think, sure, of course, there are some people who exaggerate a lot about what they do, but often what I've seen is that it's very possible that trainees have imposter syndrome, and they think that the neighbor's lawn is greener and their work is not as valuable, because what we see often, what people present, is the best of their work. We don't see their vulnerabilities. We don't see the fact that they are not showing their failures, and they're showing their best results. But we are exposed to our failures on a daily basis. So we start feeling that our work is not as good as other people. And so this sometimes in job interviews can show itself in terms of a person being too shy about sharing their thoughts and visions. They're like, who am I to have a thought? Who am I to have an idea of the future? I'm just going to present what I've done. But when people are hiring you, they don't want just someone that is a master of a particular skill. They want someone who is thoughtful, who is confident. And of course, this is a balance, and there's nothing wrong with being humble. It's just about the fact that you don't sell yourself short, and you don't hide great ideas that you may be having. On the teaching side, you may be asked to do a research demonstration. For example, many times I remember in one of my job interviews, they asked me to give a lecture on the capacitor. Okay, so of course I have to go back and remember everything and formulate something, and spend, I think something like, I forget, 7 hours, 8 hours at least preparing for it, creating the right slides, anticipating that, how I'm going to interact with people. And so it's good to have a research teaching statement, and often in job applications you have to have a teaching statement anyways, and that teaching statement, what you put in there, the ideas in there, can help you in your teaching demonstration as well, such as ideas of active learning, the fact that the new sort of era of teaching and education is not a one-way street, and there's a interactive element to it, and so things that you need to be well informed on, and have some deep thoughts about. And yeah, so look at other people's examples. Ask, don't be shy. Ask other people to give you their research statements or their teaching statements, and get ideas around them. So inclusion skills. So this is an interesting one. This sometimes could be a tiebreaker, right? So again, as you saw before, the majority of the scoring and the evaluations about your research, and then followed by teaching, for example. But this one and service could be tiebreakers, and I've seen them be tiebreakers. So when two people are extremely good, then you start to think about how sophisticated they are in terms of understanding EDI, for example, equity, diversity, and inclusion. Now, of course, this is something that even in politics is being actively discussed. And of course, anything taken, I have a mentor that has told me many times that anything taken to extreme turns against itself. But this is something, this is a great opportunity for you to really think about what equity, diversity, what inclusion means for you. And I think I highly encourage you to be authentic about it. Don't just make stuff up because it's trendy and fashionable. Have character and think about what it means. Like that, does it come from a place of care for you? Um, and don't just give lip service to it. Give yourself an opportunity, and some places, by the way, ask you for a diversity statement. Give yourself an opportunity to formulate your own thoughts and your philosophy about what it means for you to be an inclusive person. Um, so, you know, again, be authentic. You know, when I see a department head, for example, stand up, as is now fashionable in Canada, to give land acknowledgements, which, by the way, comes from a good place. It comes from a good reason that people, for example, give land acknowledgements that we are on the unceded territory of a particular tribe, and we give our gratefulness to them and all that stuff. But when you see a person do that, and at the same time, on the other side of the world, like people who have lived in a land for generation after generation after generation after generation are being driven away from their land, and tens of thousands of their children and women and men are being killed, and this person is in support of that project, you don't know if you should be laughing or crying. So have some backbone and be authentic. Say something that is not uh, moves you away from being tribal and is real, right? And just be authentic. Don't ridicule yourself. Say things that you mean. And there's a lot that you could mean here. For example, if you're an immigrant, you could think about that. Or if you've dealt with the difficulties that immigrants go through, you could talk about that. If you have studied or perhaps need to study that female scientists are dealt with differently and have been dealt with differently than male scientists with higher bars and difficulties, that's something for you to think about. It's food for thought. And so then you formulate your own thoughts about what it means to deal with underrepresented minorities and uh, allowing opportunities for them to reach their full potentials, right? So when I was at Hopkins, I remember one of the interesting things that I learned was that if, for example, in a residency interview panel, like medical residents that come in, if in the interview panel there is a person of a minority, like let's say an African American, that makes it more likely that minorities will join that residency program and will stay in it. And that has a lot of good reason around it. So understanding these things, these subtleties, and what it means for us to have an equitable environment, and again, so I'm not going to tell you what to think. I'm just giving you some ideas and some of the thoughts that have come to me, and you know, I formulated them my way. You need to formulate them your way. Be authentic. Service is, again, could be a potential tiebreaker here. Don't discount anything as service. And so examples of service include memberships on committees, organizational activities, formal or informal, right? So don't be shy. There's always a lot of things you could put in the paper reviews, grant reviews, acting as a moderator on some panel. And again, does not have to be formal, and there are many, many things that count. So I want to have some concluding thoughts here. Just know that good things happen to good people. If you don't land that job that you really badly want to have right now for whatever reason, just hang in there, hang tight. Just focus on yourself, focus on being the best version of yourself. And so there's an interesting book called Give and Take, and I recommend you check it out. And he talks about different styles that people have, and there are takers who want to take advantage of other people. There are matchers who are kind of fair. You say, I give you something, you give me something. And then there are givers that just give, and they're generous, and they don't necessarily want something back. And he says, when I studied the ladder of success, I saw that at the very bottom, very, very bottom of the ladder of success are the givers, but also at the very, very top of the ladder of success are the givers, which is an interesting point. And he says, I want to distinguish between these two kinds of givers. And I want to make a strong case that having a giving style, a generous style, can be very successful. And ultimately, one of the key things about those at the bottom of the ladder is that they're the kind of givers that don't learn from their experiences, right? So there's a Middle Eastern saying that a person of faith does not get stung twice from the same angle. So, of course, if you give and sometimes people take advantage of you, the ultimate tragedy is if you close yourself down. You say, you know what, I'm not going to be good. I'm just going to go be an average person. No, that's the ultimate tragedy. But if you learn from that experience over time, you learn to be giving in different areas and with different people and get a side of that. But why do I say all of this? I say all this because continue to work on your character, because ultimately what will make you successful is your character. Of course, there are people who climb the ladder of success and they're not genuine, they're not authentic, and they've learned the tricks of the trade to say things that allows them to be promoted, all that stuff. But ultimately, ultimately, when you look at your whole life in perspective, you cannot escape your character. It's going to stay with you. So focus on that, because that's the greatest thing that you have, the greatest opportunity that you have. People often ask me, well, I want advice around, should I go to this place or not? And I usually tell them, listen, when people even ask me, did you make the right choice going to that prestigious institute many years ago? I tell them, I don't know, because as I age more and more, I realize that it's very, very hard to know what was a good decision, because I don't have the alternative history. Had I not done that, I don't know what would have happened to me if I had gone to a different place. But I'll tell you that something that guarantees your success is that you start with the right intentions. If you have the right intentions about making your move, no matter what happens, it's added to your character and your personality. So, think about why you want this job. Is it about you supporting your family? Is it about you making a difference in healthcare? Is it about you reaching your full potentials? Is it about you having found this thing that truly resonates with you and you think you can make a difference? And whatever it is, think about it. Why is it that you're applying for this position? And why is it that you want to go to that institute? That intentionality stays with you, and that itself is success in itself. One of the last thoughts I want to share with you is, don't spend your life waiting for the people who have interviewed you. I have spent many, many, many months, me and my wife, every day checking my email to see if the chair of that department answers me or not, right? And that can be a cause of stress and putting your life on hold. It is likely that you will be waiting a lot anyways for all these things, and just don't stress too much around it, and don't suffer too much. I want you to just know that what is good for you will come to you. Just hang in there and do the right things, and hopefully they will come with you. I remember that when I prepared hard for my interviews, I always felt I have to put my trust in the higher power, the one who's always been with me and with you and has always been there. And so just go in there. Things are not in our hands. We can prepare at the best, but there's so many things that are not out of our hands. And even how we prepare, we don't know what is the best way to prepare. So just put your trust in the higher power, do the good work that you're doing, and good things will come to you. I have another talk that I just want you to consider looking at. It's a sort of a thoughts on what it means to have growth and success and well-being in academia. It's almost a philosophy or a thought process around what are the right things to do right now that you're in academia. And I think some of these things are important for your success in your future job searches. So don't be shy asking for other people's experiences, and also share your experiences with other people. Thank you very much, and good luck in your job search and your job interviews.